My name is Sergey and I teach on Udemy. In fact, I decided to quit my 9 to 5 job about a year ago, go full-time into teaching on Udemy itself. Right now I teach over 30 classes and I have 25,000 students in all my courses. So let me tell you about what I think about the new price changes on Udemy itself. First off, it came as a shock to me. I wasn't expecting it. There was a big announcement about it, and I was like, wow. At first, I was like, hey, this is not good news. Now everything is going to be between 20 to 50 bucks. And I have experimented before at this price level, and it wasn't working well for me. So I was pretty shocked, and I didn't like it initially. Now, I had a few days that I thought about this, and I have decided that it might be a good in some ways. So let me tell you why I think it is good and why it's not so good. First of all, the good thing about this is that it forces everybody to compete within the same price range. What I mean by that is right now it goes from 20 bucks to 50 bucks and that's it. So what it really means is like if you make a $300 course versus a 50-buck class, there is a big difference between those two kinds of classes. It used to be that if you make a $300 class and then they give all those coupons out for 10, everybody would jump in and buy your classes. Now it all depends on the course itself. Some people would buy them, some people would actually not get that many sales. But right now we are competing not about the price of the courses, we are competing about the quality of the classes, which means that this is a whole different ball game. You can't go and mimic the price itself from high to low, trying to draw students to take your classes. Right now you're competing about which class is the best for the student. Plus, on the other hand, if you take a look at all my sales, and I did, I see most of them are averaged about like 15 bucks or so. So it doesn't give you a humongous amount of money that you will really be losing. If you take a look at your sales, you will see the same thing. It's like a lot of the sales you're making at the low end of the spectrum, not in the high end. Although I did have quite a few full prices sales for some of my classes, which did happen to me. So what kind of full price did I have? I had a $200 actually sale at one point and no refunds. I had some 70, I had some 90, and so on. So those things do happen, but the occasional amount for them to actually happen, they didn't happen that many times for me to justify to leave my prices there. But here is the whole problem. I couldn't go and minimize my prices to the level that I thought I would be able to sell because I'm competing against everybody else who is pricing their classes as well. So if you price your class at 300 and I price mine at 70, there's no way I can sell my course at 70 even if it's better in perceived value and whatever I'm offering, because the student will think the 300 course is much better. Right now we are all competing at the same level. We are no longer competing about price. So now if I set my sale, whatever it is, at 50 bucks and somebody wants to buy it, like let's say tomorrow, and I give him 50% off, yeah, that's gonna work a lot better. Now, one thing I do have an issue with this particular structure, which I like, but I really hope that they will tweak the bugs out. I hope they will do a few more changes, such as maybe give us more flexibility in terms of increments, such as maybe put 9s in there. Another thing I was hoping that they would do is give us more flexibility of discounting the class itself, discounting more than 50%. So those are the two things I actually don't like this much about this particular system. Another thing that's going to make it harder is actually to sell the stuff outside of Udemy itself. So if you want to sell those classes, you used to be able to discount it humongously outside of Udemy and people would jump in there. Now we have to think of a whole new level of how to market this. But I'm sure that as everybody else is going to be adjusting, it's going to take a transition period for us to get used to this new price scheme and see how it goes, and hopefully Udemy is going to tweak the system along in case it's not working as well as they thought it would. Another thing that is much different that I think is going to help some sellers and not help others is like, for example, those people who will make a lot of money selling classes outside of this range, outside of the 50 buck range, who are selling it for 70, 100 like maybe even $300. Now, those kind of sellers obviously are not going to be happy. They're going to get rid of their stuff. They're going to take their stuff off from Udemy itself. And in some ways, that's a good thing for people who are going to stay with Udemy, and it's going to stay there for a long term. So they will get their things out of Udemy. That's fine with me. It means less competition for some of us. Now, on the other hand, here is something you have to think about. How are you going to price structure your classes? And in terms of content, some people want to actually go and let's break our classes into different kind of segments to give them their $50 value. If I had a $300 class, why not break it into a few different structures and sell it this way? Now, that is an option for you, but it all depends. You have to experiment. You have to try and see what's going to work for you. In my case, what I do is totally different than what you're going to be doing. So whatever my recommendations are for my classes is not something you should try by yourself, because I have a totally different kind of market, and I'll be experimenting with different price points and different ways to sell what I'm selling to see which works best for me. Now, I do have 6-hour classes that I could break them up into pieces too. That is a possibility, but the only way I could do this, according to Udemy, is to actually unpublish the course and then go and create a new class, like 3 different segments of it, and you can try that as well and see if that works for you. Now, you can't just go and take your 6-hour class and then break it into a few hours and break it into pieces like that, because that goes against the terms of service. You can't just go and, because they have a lifetime access, you can't just go and take away content from that specific class out of it once you give it to them. It's really unfair to the students themselves as well. So for you, the best method for you is to consider, if you are going to stay with Udemy, you have to go with the new price structure. You have to work with the way they're going to actually price everything. You have to give it a try and see how it's going to go. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm staying with Udemy. I'm going to give this a try. And hopefully, if this works well, I'll be pretty happy. If it doesn't work well, I would hope Udemy will support us, the instructors, and they will adjust things accordingly if the sales are not getting there. So this is something for you to keep in mind. The reason for the price structure, this is another thing. They're competing against different kind of marketplaces, and since 90% of all the sales were actually within $20 to $50 range, it makes sense for the Udemy system itself to stay within that range, because students, they want to buy the stuff now. It's more of the concept with eBay. Well, I used to sell there for a really long time, and I still do. And one thing that they moved away from the auctions used to be everybody would auction for things. It's like discounts, the same thing. It's like you had to wait until the end of the auction and then you will buy something, but it's going to take you a week to buy it. So eBay came up with a new system which was buy it right now, just Amazon style, where you put like fixed prices, which is what Udemy is trying to do, like the fixed prices thing where somebody goes in and just buys something when they want it. And I think it's much superior to the subscription model where somebody actually buys a few months subscription and they can watch and consume whatever they want. Now that's something totally different, and that is something I don't think is good for virtual courses, because a lot of people, when they pay money for membership for something, they're not as likely to use it as when they actually buy the course itself. They're more likely to go in and actually use it. Now if somebody pays for the class like $20 or 25 or even 50, they're more likely to watch the course versus if they paid $1 or 10. So here is another thing that you have to keep in mind is the race to the bottom that was happening with Udemy, which Udemy is trying to eliminate. And the race to the bottom, it started with the classes themselves going from like $10 all the way to $1, and some instructors were selling their courses for $1, undercutting everybody out there. And the problem with that, how can you compete with $1? You can't. And some people were giving away free stuff, so it was racing everything to the bottom, and that means a lot more instructors were getting nothing whatsoever. They were getting a little bit of cash. Now the free courses out there are gonna compete against you. Yes, that's true, but people are realizing more and more that free doesn't pay. It's not good to create just free stuff. And a lot of the free stuff, it's more like they want to get you to buy the better products. If that's what you're doing, I do suggest for you, yes, offer free stuff of value, but keep the best stuff that is paid. It does justice for everybody else as well, because you don't want to just create free things and overwhelm the marketplace. But what you're going to do with this? Are you going to get money in the end? If you're not going to get money, what's the point? There is no point here, because you want to get paid for the time you're putting to what you're creating. And that's what gets you to create new stuff. You have to have money to be able to do this full time. And to do this full time, you have to create good quality content. This is the key to your success. I mean, I do teach people how to create a Udemy course as well on Udemy. So this is a few things that I want you to keep in mind when you're actually thinking about, should I get off Udemy and try to do this myself? Yes, you could do this, but the question is, can you get the volume in there? The volume of people that Udemy itself puts into the course every single month that you're getting. And think about in terms of sales. If your sales are good right now and the new system, you might suffer for a little bit, but after a while, I'm sure it's going to get better. So with everybody else, I want you to know that just stick it in there. Let's see how the changes go on April, and I'm sure that they're going to tweak some of the bugs, especially us in stock. There's a few things we don't like about, and I'm sure they're going to change things for the better after they see if this works or it doesn't. So I'm sticking in, and post below your opinion and let me know what you think of the system and what you're going to be doing about all of this, what's your strategy and everything else.